Scientists were left baffled when the great white shark was devoured by a mysterious species. They set out on a quest, looking for answers as to what could have possibly gone wrong. Then, one day, they finally found out the truth. The fate of the great white shark was much worse than you think, as all of the possibilities kept piling up. Join us as we dive into exactly what happened with the great white shark, and how scientists have finally revealed who devoured this 9-foot-long shark. The disappearance of the great white shark. Great white sharks are often seen as the deadliest and most fearsome creatures in our oceans. They are known as apex predators. But did you know that even these formidable sharks have something to fear? It's a startling thought. In 2003, Australian scientists set out to study these ocean giants. They attached a tracking device to a 9-foot-long great white shark to monitor its movements. However, just 4 months later, the tracker washed up on a beach without the shark. What do you think could have happened to this massive predator? What could be powerful enough to take down one of the most terrifying creatures in the ocean, leaving no trace? Theories ranged from a lost megalodon to a giant squid. Isn't that intriguing? What could have devoured this giant great white shark? This mystery began in 2003 when filmmakers Dave and Janine Riggs were working on a nature documentary in Bremer Bay, Australia. Everything was going smoothly until they encountered a disturbing sight. 9 enormous sperm whales had washed ashore, lifeless. As they approached, they saw something even more alarming. In the shallows, closer to land than usual, was a group of hungry great white sharks, drawn by the smell of the whale carcasses. Most people would have avoided the area, but Dave saw an opportunity. He contacted a team of scientists who arrived with geotagging equipment. They planned to tag the sharks and track their movements to learn more about their migration patterns. Using long poles with special needles, they inserted tags at the base of the shark's dorsal fins. The first shark they tagged was a 9-foot-long female named Shark Alpha. Little did they know, this tagging would lead to one of the biggest marine mysteries ever. Doesn't that sound fascinating? Just 4 months later, Shark Alpha's tag washed ashore, but there was no sign of the shark. The researchers analyzed the data and found something incredible. On Christmas Eve, the shark had been swimming normally when it suddenly changed course and began a rapid descent to nearly 1,900 feet, far deeper than great whites usually swim. Moments later, the tag recorded a temperature increase from 46 degrees to 78 degrees Fahrenheit. What could this mean? The experts were stunned. They concluded that Shark Alpha must have been swallowed by something larger and more powerful. Shark Alpha was nearly a ton in weight and incredibly strong, yet something had overpowered it and dragged it into the deep ocean. What do you think could be capable of such a feat? The homemade submarine mission. Dave, the fearless explorer, decided he needed to go right into the depths of the ocean himself to solve this mystery. Since he knew diving without the right equipment would be suicidal, so he built his own underwater vehicle. It consisted of a metal frame, parts from an old lawnmower, and 5 layers of fiberglass. Does that sound like something that could hold up that deep underwater? This gadget was supposed to protect him from the ocean's deadliest creatures. Dave had no idea what would await him down there, but curiosity got the best of him. Despite the obvious dangers, Dave pulled together a team of equally adventurous people. They all squeezed into this homemade submarine and prepared to dive into the unknown. Within minutes, it became clear that this was going to be much tougher than they had anticipated. Just 65 feet below the surface, they were surrounded by around 40 whaler sharks and a whole pod of killer whales. Realizing they couldn't stick around without risking their lives, they had to abandon the mission and return to the surface. But their efforts weren't entirely in vain. They discovered that killer whales and whaler sharks were abundant in this so-called kill zone. This raised the big question: Could one of these predators be responsible for the disappearance of shark alpha? The whaler shark possibility. The copper shark, also known as the bronze whaler or narrow-toothed shark, is a fascinating species of requiem shark, primarily found in temperate waters. Its habitat spans various regions, from the northeastern and southwestern Atlantic to southern Africa, the northwestern and eastern Pacific, and even around Australia and New Zealand, with occasional sightings in equatorial areas. From brackish rivers and estuaries to shallow bays and offshore waters over 100 meters deep, these sharks are quite the travelers, adapting to diverse environments. Measuring up to an impressive 3.3 meters long, spotting a copper shark can be challenging due to its resemblance to other large requiem sharks. However, its distinctive narrow hook-shaped upper teeth, lack of a prominent ridge between dorsal fins, and plain bronze coloration set it apart. But what exactly do they eat? Cephalopods, bony fishes, and other cartilaginous fishes make up their main diet. The giant shark is nowhere even close to their menu. They're fast swimmers, occasionally hunting in groups, especially during the annual sardine run off South Africa, where millions of pilchards flood the waters. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Like many requiem sharks, copper sharks are viviparous, meaning they give birth to live young. Females bear litters of 7 to 24 pups every other year in coastal nursery areas after a lengthy gestation period ranging from 12 to possibly 21 months. And it doesn't end there. These sharks take their sweet time growing up, with males maturing between 13 and 19 years and females between 19 and 20 years. Despite their impressive size and occasional association with shark attacks, copper sharks are not considered significant threats to humans. They rank 10th in the number of unprovoked shark attacks on people, with only a handful of recorded incidents, 15 of which were non-fatal and 1 fatal. As of now, the species' population size remains unknown, and it's classified as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List due to its susceptibility to overfishing. With slow growth and reproductive rates, coupled with declines in some areas, copper sharks face significant threats to their survival. So, while whaler sharks are fearsome, they rarely grow larger than a standard great white, making it unlikely that one could have taken down shark alpha. They seem like they would be overpowered by a great white shark, but killer whales are another story altogether. The killer whale possibility. These are the black and white whales that rule the oceans. They're also known as orcas, and aren't just your usual whales. They're the biggest dolphins out there as part of the oceanic dolphin family. With their distinctive patterns, orcas are found in all sorts of waters, from icy Arctic regions to sunny tropical seas. These creatures are known to eat everything from fish to sharks to seals. Some orca groups or pods even have specialized diets. And they're not just predators, they're socially active too, as they can be found in tight-knit family groups with their families, passing down hunting secrets and unique vocal traditions through the generations. When it comes to size, male orcas are massive, stretching out to 6 to 8 meters long and weighing over 6 tons. The female orcas are a bit smaller, but still impressive at 5 to 7 meters long and weighing about 3 to 4 tons. However, there are exceptions. Some males manage to reach a length of 9.8 meters, and females hit 8.5 meters. That's like the size of a bus, if you'd like to put it in perspective. Now, despite their power and size, orcas are actually not violent with humans. There's never been a confirmed case of an orca attacking a person in the wild. However, in captivity, it's a different story. There have been some unfortunate incidents where captive orcas have harmed their handlers at theme parks. This means that while they may not be the first to attack out in the open, they do have violent tendencies. These killer whales are incredibly fast and powerful, making them capable of taking down a shark. However, the data doesn't quite fit this theory. Shark Alpha's tag showed she was attacked at a depth of 1,900 feet, and killer whales are known as surface hunters, rarely diving that deep. Plus, the temperature inside the predator was recorded at 78 degrees Fahrenheit, whereas killer whales have an internal body temperature similar to humans, around 100 degrees. So if it wasn't a killer whale, then what could it have been? This brings us to our next possibility, the giant squid possibility. These massive cephalopods have kept the world intrigued with their existence. They belong to the family Architeuthidea and are known scientifically as Architeuthis ducks. These squids can grow to enormous sizes, with females reaching 12–13 meters and males topping out at around 10 meters. Despite their enormous size, our knowledge of these creatures is limited. Genetic research indicates the existence of only one species. While there have been claims of specimens measuring over 20 meters, these reports lack scientific documentation. The first images of giant squids in their natural habitat were captured by a Japanese team in 2004. Giant squids are widespread, inhabiting all of the world's oceans. They are often found near continental and island slopes, from the North Atlantic Ocean, including regions like Newfoundland, Norway, and the northern British Isles, to the South Atlantic around southern Africa, and the Pacific Ocean around Japan, New Zealand, and Australia. However, specimens are rare in tropical and polar latitudes. When it comes to their diet, giant squids are scary predators. They feed on deep-sea fish, such as the orange ruffy and other squid species. Using their 2 tentacles equipped with serrated sucker rings, they capture prey and bring it towards their powerful beaks, shredding it with their radula before consumption. Despite their size, they are considered solitary hunters, with only individual giant squids caught in fishing nets. Interestingly, giant squids have been observed engaging in cannibalistic behavior, with evidence suggesting that they may occasionally prey on each other. Such interactions may occur due to competition for resources or territorial disputes. Now, the giant squids live in the dark depths of the ocean, precisely at the depth where Shark Alpha met her end. They have powerful tentacles equipped with grippy suckers, capable of ensnaring prey from up to 33 feet away. Could a giant squid have overpowered a great white shark? This theory makes sense, especially considering that giant squids are still somewhat of a mystery to scientists due to their deep-sea habitat. The ocean's depths are the least explored parts of our planet, making it a prime suspect location for such a mysterious predator. However, there isn't enough evidence to start pointing fingers just yet. There's one possibility that we have yet to explore. Historically, there were plenty of shark-eating creatures that roamed the oceans. Could it be possible that one of these supposedly extinct beings is responsible for the attack? Considering that 80% of the ocean is still unexplored, this theory isn't as far-fetched as it might sound. The Spinosaurus theory. These are known as the ultimate spine lizard that ruled North Africa during the late Cretaceous period, around 100 to 94 million years ago. They existed back at the time when dinosaurs roamed the earth, calling it their home. But Spinosaurus weren't like the other dinosaurs. Back in 1912, some Egyptian remains caught the eye of German paleontologist Ernst Stromer, who officially introduced Spinosaurus to the world in 1915. Unfortunately, those original bones were wiped out in World War II, but more pieces of the puzzle came out in the 21st century. Now, scientists aren't quite sure if we're dealing with one Spinosaurus species or two. The main species is S. aegyptiacus from Egypt, but there's a potential second player, S. moroccanus, which is in Morocco. Then there's also Sigelmassasaurus, which some people think might just be Spinosaurus existing in a slightly different pose. When we talk about Spinosaurus, we're talking about a group of very famous carnivores. Think of T-Rex, Giganotosaurus, and Carcharodontosaurus. They were all contenders, but Spinosaurus took the crown for being the longest terrestrial carnivore in town. Recent studies suggest that Spinosaurus might have reached 14 meters in length and weighed in at 7.4 metric tons. Plus, Spinosaurus wasn't just big. They were built in the scariest way imaginable. Their skulls were long, low, and narrow, like a modern crocodile, with straight conical teeth ready to take a big bite out of whatever they fancied. And those forelimbs were no joke either. The Spinosaurus had three-fingered hands with an oversized claw. There were long extensions of the vertebrae growing up to 1.65 meters tall, forming a sail-like structure on their backs. Some people thought it was for temperature control, while others thought it was about attracting the females or intimidating rival dinosaurs. But here's the part that might concern you the most. Spinosaurus wouldn't just exist on land, it was a bit of a water baby too. Evidence suggests it was semi-aquatic, meaning it could have been quite the swimmer. Its leg bones were denser than your average dinosaur, giving it better control in the water. And that tail was also like a built-in paddle, perfect for swimming through those ancient mangrove forests. Since the Spinosaurus was thought to have been capable of eating sharks, there's a big possibility that the species still exists out there in the ocean, without anybody else's knowledge. However, Spinosaurus was only semi-aquatic and probably couldn't dive to the depths where the great white shark died. So, this leads to another dead end, but there's more to the speculation than that. The Mosasaurus theory. These were known as the lizards of the Meuse River that ruled the seas during the late Cretaceous, around 82 to 66 million years ago. Mosasaurus was first discovered centuries ago when some skulls popped up in a chalk quarry near Maastricht, Netherlands. Back then, people mistook them for crocodiles or even whales. But then, in 1808, naturalist Georges Cuvier figured it out and called them giant marine lizards, paving the way for our understanding of extinction. It wasn't until 1822 that William Daniel Conybeare officially came up with the name Mosasaurus, paying homage to its riverbank roots. Now let's talk size, because Mosasaurus was massive. Traditional estimates pegged the largest species, M. hoffmanni, at 17.1 meters, which is longer than a school bus. However, recent studies suggest it might have been a little shorter, clocking in at around 13 meters. That's still quite impressive, and definitely sounds big enough to devour a whole shark. Mosasaurus came equipped with rows of teeth, designed for slicing through prey. Its four limbs were like paddles, perfect for navigating those ancient waters, while its tail had a unique bend and paddle-like fluke, making it a pro swimmer. Mosasaurus had killer eyesight to make up for its lackluster sense of smell, hinting that it might have been a warm-blooded beast. But here's where things get a bit murky. Mosasaurus came in all shapes and sizes, from the robust M. hoffmanni to the sleek and serpentine M. lemonieri. With more than 50 species once attributed to the genus, it's been a bit confusing, but recent research has helped clear up the confusion, confirming at least 5 species under the Mosasaurus umbrella. Now, Mosasaurus wasn't just found in one corner of the ocean. It was a globetrotter, appearing in North and South America, Europe, Africa, Western Asia, and even Antarctica. And wherever it went, Mosasaurus was feasting on everything from bony fish to sea turtles, and even other mosasaurs. But life wasn't all smooth sailing for Mosasaurus. It had some fierce competition in the form of Prognathodon and Tylosaurus, fellow mosasaurs fighting for the same prey. When compared to the Spinosaurus, Mosasaurus was more suited to deep-sea life. They had powerful limbs and tails, allowing them to swim at tremendous speeds. They could easily chase down and devour a great white shark. But to really understand how the great white shark could have met its end, it might help to get to know more about this shark in the first place. What's so special about the great white shark? Their genus, known as Carcharodon, belongs to the Lamnidae family, which includes some other sharks like the mako and salmon sharks. These white sharks basically rule the ocean. You can find them swimming in waters with temperatures ranging from 12 to 24 degrees Celsius, with hotspots in the United States, South Africa, Japan, and even the Mediterranean. But they're not just hanging out near the coast. They'll dive as deep as 1,200 meters, which is something a lot of other aquatic creatures can't match. Recent studies found the great white shark between Baja California and Hawaii, staying out there for a good 100 days before heading back home. Plus, they're not just staying with their local group. They're interacting with sharks from all over. But what's the deal with their migration? Is it random, or is there something bigger going on? With seal populations booming since the 70s, these sharks are living it up. But what do they eat, and how are they navigating these crowded waters? A lot of these questions are answers that only the great white shark can provide. These sharks have their sleek, conical snouts and mottled coloration, and their serrated chompers are no joke. Plus, they've got eyes that are as blue as the ocean itself, making them stand out as one of the most unique shark species out there. But they're not just pretty faces. These sharks can get massive, with females reaching up to 6.1 meters in length and weighing over 2,000 kilograms. That's like having a small car swimming around in the ocean. They grow about 25 centimeters every year, which is probably what contributed to their size the most. Beyond that, the behavior and social dynamics of the great white sharks are seriously complex. The white sharks in South Africa have this whole pecking order thing going on. The big sharks call the shots, with size being the main decider. Females usually boss the males around, and the locals get dibs over newcomers. It's all about who's going to intimidate everyone into submission. Now, when it comes to hunting, these great whites are all about keeping the peace. They're not into full-on fights. Instead, they prefer to settle disputes with some intense moves and rituals. But sometimes things get a bit nippy, and there have been cases where a shark's been found with bite marks from its buddies, almost like a warning nip to keep their distance. Interestingly, these sharks might be more chatty than we thought. Recent studies suggest they might befriend others to share the latest gossip on where to find food or other survival tactics. Also, these sharks are super curious creatures. They'll scope out the scene and even go out in groups, and guess what? These sharks might be even more mysterious than we thought. There's talk that they can change color depending on their mood or hormones. Now, let's talk diet. These sharks aren't picky eaters. From fish to seals to even sea turtles, they'll eat anything that moves. And when it's mealtime, they've got some pretty gnarly tricks up their sleeves. But hey, life's not all about hunting for these sharks. Sometimes they just want to kick back and relax. Off the coast of California, they'll unwind near the surface, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, because it's all about timing. And when it comes to love, these sharks know how to keep things interesting. Mating behavior's been a bit of a mystery, but recent sightings suggest they like to roll around belly to belly in shallow waters. Now, this brings us to the last possibility, an idea that will leave your mind full of even more questions. The bloop. A bloop is a crazy underwater sound that NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, picked up back in 1997. At first, people thought it might be some giant sea creature making a ruckus, but later, NOAA figured it was more likely caused by the icy movements of glaciers. Bloop was detected in the South Pacific Ocean, way out in the middle of nowhere, but it wasn't just a blip on the radar. This sound was so loud that it could be heard over 5,000 kilometers away. Now, here's where it gets interesting. NOAA thinks bloop might be the result of something called a cryoseism, basically an ice quake. Glaciers would have been doing the tectonic tango underwater, causing all sorts of commotion. But there's more. Some experts think bloop could be caused by ice calving, which is when chunks of ice break off from glaciers. But what's causing all this ice to break off in the first place? Climate change, perhaps? And get this, there's even speculation that bloop might have an animal origin. Imagine some colossal sea creature lurking in the depths, belting out tunes like it's auditioning for The Voice. But if it's an animal, it must be one heck of a beast, because bloop was heard thousands of kilometers away. Could there really be something lurking in the ocean that's bigger and louder than any whale? Only time will tell. But until then, scientists are still looking to understand exactly what happened to the great white shark.